The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take a more detailed look at Duelist Nexus. I have a list of all the cards open, all the stuff from the OCG set, all the TCG exclusives, everything. Also a list of all the rarities. So today we're going to be preparing for the release of Duelist Nexus in the TCG, which is next week. Right? Next week. Just looking at which cards from the new set are worth getting. What we're not going to do today is we're not going to make a tier list for the new format yet. That is something I have in the back of my mind. I need to think about it a little bit more before I can do that. But that is something we will also do in the upcoming days. Without further ado, let us begin. This is not the full set list. This is all the cards that the set had in the OCG. And I have another list here with all the TCG exclusive cards and imports and everything. These are sorted by archetypes, and we can just start looking at them one by one, and I'm going to tell you what I think about these. First up, we have Altergeist cards. There's 2 new main deck monsters, a new trap card, and I believe 1 more link monster. I think it's 4 new Altergeist cards total. In general, these Altergeist cards are not bad, in my opinion. However, I am not sure if I like them overall. The main thing you need to know about the Altergeist cards is that they make the deck a lot faster, / they give the deck some combo lines. You have like this thing, which if it's added to your hand, you can special summon it. So you can like do stuff like add it to your hand with Meluseek and immediately special summon it. We have Penetrator, which is kind of like Meluseek, but a little bit worse, but adds any Altergeist card from your deck to your hand as well. There's a couple of interesting combo lines with the new Altergeist cards, as much so that they can even climb all the way into the new Link 4 monster on turn 1 if you open specific 2-card combos. They turn it kind of like into a combo deck, which in my opinion for Altergeist just doesn't feel great. At the same time, the deck still runs a lot of the trap cards and a lot of those things that make your deck inherently slower than other combo decks. So in my opinion, this is not the right way to support Altergeist. Even if Altergeist has some interesting 2-card combos that make some crazy endboards going first, if I want to play a combo deck, I can just play a different deck that's going to be way more efficient at that, right? There's other combo decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! That do a lot more with 1 or 2 cards than what Altergeist does, even with the new support. And it also kind of makes the deck lose its identity. I feel like, and unfortunately Duelist Nexus doesn't change that, the only reason to play Altergeist, in my opinion, is because you like the deck, right? And I've heard from a lot of people that the new Altergeist cards don't really feel like Altergeist cards. The people that like Altergeist for its playstyle don't really enjoy playing with these new cards, which I think is kind of a bummer. I don't think it gives Altergeist a push into the meta. It feels like a band-aid fix to a bigger problem in Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is like trap decks are too slow. Usually, like when trap decks go second, half of their hand doesn't do anything. Your opponent gets to do all their stuff and you just go ahead and set a couple cards and pass. And what they're trying to do is, hey, we're gonna make the deck faster, but all you're doing is you're turning a trap deck into a combo deck. You're not fixing the problems of like trap decks being literally unplayable when you go second, right? And so unfortunate, but it is what it is. Evolzar support. I remember the new rank 6 being pretty good. I just realized that it's called Evolzar Raz in the OCG. Can someone explain to me why they changed this name in the TCG to Lars? Isn't it called Evolzar Lars? It feels like so off. You got Lagia, you got Solda, you got Dolka. They all have like these more fantasy sounding names. And then we got Lars. We got Lars out here just being a regular old ass name for humans. I think this card is good even outside of dinosaur or reptile decks because it's just a rank 6 Omni Negate, kind of. Not completely Omni Negate, but pretty good. You can negate twice if you manage to make it with 2 reptiles or dinosaurs. And then we got Evolzar Rios and Evoltile Forest. Both of those cards I think are good, but I think that the Evolzar / Evoltile deck suffers from a whole different problem, which is that the old cards that you already have, I don't think are very good. They have a couple ones that are okay, but like you have to realize that this archetype was based around flip effects back in the day, right? Most of the stuff is very outdated, and you only get 2 new main deck monsters to make up for like all of the old cards being weak. So I don't think overall it's going to be good enough. I mean, this card here is pretty strong. The other one is also not bad. So I mean, maybe, but I don't think this has potential to even break into like tier 2 territory off of just this support. I'm not convinced. We have new Infernoble support and pretty sizable, honestly. 4 new main deck cards for Infernobles plus a new Link 1. You know we love Link 1s over here. This card is fine. Summoning from graveyard is decent on normal or special. However, locking yourself into warrior isn't great. And then we have Turpin. Turpin, I think, is a pretty good card. I don't know how it fits into the Infernoble combo lines. I have to admit, I'm not so familiar with that, but this card is solid because extender from the graveyard, if you have an equip card, level 4 warrior at that, like pretty good attributes to have. And then it can even turn any warrior into a tuner if you have it in the graveyard. So this card is pretty solid. However, I don't know how well it fits into the existing Infernoble strategies. Then we have Almace. If it's equipped to a monster, you can equip an Infernoble from deck or grave to an appropriate monster and then destroy this card. That is already really good because keep in mind they have Durandal, which is a Rhoda. So this card is basically an equip spell that searches a Rhoda if you want to, but you can also play other Infernoble arms as like utility. Like for example, I think there is one that's like Noble Arms Arfidator or whatever it's called, the one that gets rid of back row. You can side 1 copy of that for back row decks and then you have 4 copies of it if you play Almace. In general, Infernoble arms have like insane searching power, right? There is another spell card that searches any Infernoble arm. So literally you have a Rhoda for a Rhoda for a Rhoda in Infernoble right now, which is funny. If this card is sent to the graveyard because the equipped monster is sent to the grave, you can target a fire that's banished or in the grave, add it to your hand. So if you don't want to use the first effect because you already have all the noble arms you need, you can technically just equip it to a monster and then link it off, and then it adds back another fire warrior. So I think this is a pretty good card. And then we have Museum, which is a field spell. Once per turn, you can pay 1200 life points, add a Noble Arms card from your deck to your hand. There you go, another Rhoda. This card is also, of course, phenomenal. A field spell that is once per turn search, plus it lets you do a little bonus effect, plus not heart once per turn. If you draw multiple Noble Arms Museums, you can use it multiple times. However, I will say that is something where my lack of knowledge about Infernoble comes in, because I'm not sure how many different good noble arms there are. Because the only good ones I can think of is like the Rhoda, the back row pop, and the new one. But that only adds another Infernoble arms. So I don't think there is too many. I definitely think that at a certain point, if you play all of those, you just start drawing too many redundant cards. So that is something to keep in mind. This card would have been like infinitely better if it could have searched like Infernoble Knights, for example. But then it would be completely busted. So I'm glad it doesn't do that. We have 2 new support cards in the extra deck even. Not just a Link monster, but also a Synchro. It requires a level 9 Infernoble Knight Emperor Charles, which is equipped with an equip card as material. Very specific. This is honestly one of my favorite Link ones, because it's not just like a generic starter where you just normal summon anything that you want in the graveyard and you just link it off and you get a free bonus effect. This one is very unique because it makes it so that you turn your big Synchro monster into another card, right? So what you do is you use the level 9 Infernoble Knight Emperor Charles equipped with an equip card, and if it's link summoned, you can target that Emperor Charles in your grave. This card's name becomes that monster's original name and replace this effect with that monster's original effect. Then equip it to this card as an equip spell that gives it 500 attack. And then on top of that, once per turn when a spell and trap card or effect is activated, quick effect, you can send 1 equip spell from your hand or face up field to the grave, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. So it's kind of like you make the Synchro, and then you transform the Synchro. It keeps all of its effects, right? And then you just have a little bonus on your level 9 Synchro, basically, right? Which is a very unique way to do it. You equip Charles to this, then special summon it with Museum and make another. Right. Museum. Yeah. No. If you have the field spell, that's really good. And then we have Angelica, Princess of Noble Arms. 1 tuner plus 1 plus non-tuner monsters. If this card is special summoned, you can add a Horn of the Oliphant or a card that mentions Infernoble Knight Emperor Charles from your deck to your hand. Now, I'm pretty sure you're never going to add Horn of the Oliphant. I don't think you play that. You're probably going to add like the field spell. When a card or effect is activated that targets this card, or when this card is targeted for an attack, you can send a fire monster from deck to the grave. If you do banish this card, then you can special summon a Roland monster from your deck or extra deck. You can only use each effect of Angelica once per turn. This card is also solid. Oh yeah, I forgot to cover the trap card. The Epic Poem of Charles. Very epic. The field effect is good, but it's a trap card, so I don't think you're going to use it for this reason. Maybe you use it to just discard it for something and use the secondary effect. I'm not sure if it's good enough for that, and if Infernoble have enough like discard outlets, but yeah. Anyways, Infernoble Knight support overall, I think, is very solid. Those are very good cards. Whether this makes the deck playable or not remains to be seen. However, unlike the Evos earlier, Infernoble already has a bunch of good cards, right? And a bunch of cards that are even like very, very busted. And we still have Isold. We still have the Phoenix Blade and everything. Like, there's a lot of very cool cards for Infernoble. I'm a little bit concerned about it because Infernoble feels like just a very, very all-in combo pile style deck. Kind of like just go all in, try to vomit your hand onto the field turn 1, make ISO, Link Climb, make the Charge, Omni Negates, all that kind of stuff. Not a huge fan of that, but it is probably solid overall with the support. All right, we got Rescue Ace support. Only 2 new cards, however, pretty good ones at that. The new Rescue Ace cards made the deck meta in the OCG. However, there's a core difference between Rescue Ace in the OCG and Rescue Ace in the TCG. And the core difference is it begins with Max and it ends with C. One of the reasons why I believe the OCG duelists like Rescue Ace so much is that it's relatively good against Max C, because you can set up your Turbulence, I believe is the big one that sets all your spell and traps from the deck. You can set up that card with like 1 or 2 special summons. So basically you can full combo with just 1 or 2 special summons under Max C, which is very solid. And I think that is why they like it in the OCG. It's a solid mid-range deck that also doesn't lose to Max C. For us, it's still a solid mid-range deck, but the whole advantage of like not caring about Max C is irrelevant for us. So there is like other mid-range decks or other combo decks that I think are a little bit more unfair than Rescue Ace. I still think the deck has potential. I think you can try it. I doubt it'll be any better than tier 2 until we get another ban list maybe. Then we have the Illusion cards, which I personally am pretty interested in just because I love their design. I think the Illusion cards are really, really cool. However, I think at this point in time, they are a little bit gimmicky, and like the only deck that I can think of that would benefit from these cards is like you can try to build a branded Illusion mythical beast kind of strategy. I think you can do that. I don't think it's going to end up being better than freaking pure branded or branded bestial type of stuff. But I think if you really want to play with these cards, that's your best bet. But yeah, overall, I think the cards are solid. And I think there is still a lot of hope for Illusionists, because think of the first wave of Cyber support and how bad that was, and then think about how good some Cyber's cards are these days. So it's the first set that we're getting Illusion cards in, so this is not the end-all be-all for Illusions. This card's a secret rare, and it's like by far the worst Illusion monster, I think. Like, these ones up here are all fine, which means that the deck will be relatively cheap. For whatever it's worth, maybe for like a budget version of certain decks, like maybe a budget branded version that you need less Quem or something for, could be interesting, right? Because all of these cards are going to be very cheap, I think. Mikanko support, I don't think is worth talking about that much. I don't think they're terrible, but they're also not really what the deck needs. I don't have the greatest hopes for Mikanko with the new cards. These cards, I read them before. I was not a fan of the dinosaur support in this set. The Nemleria is still an archetype that I personally don't really understand the point of. It feels like a very pack filler archetype to me. I don't have great hopes for Nemleria, and I also don't feel like it's intended to be competitive, because if you're trying to make a competitive archetype, you don't end up with Nemleria. Like, really, I don't think this archetype even is intended to be very good. It seems like a weird mix of, like, I don't know, Medolches, because it's all like desserts and just like they're all really big and really hard to summon and shit like that. I don't know. This card wasn't great. The Mannadium support is worth talking about, especially Mannadium Trid. The cool thing about Mannadium Trid is that if it's destroyed, it floats into any of the Mannadium tuners, not just itself, which is very unique because the other Mannadium tuners only summon themselves, right? Fearless only summons Fearless and Meek only summons Meek. Trid can summon any. However, this one is also once per turn, which is worth noting, right? The other ones are not once per turn, so you can like destroy one, summon again, destroy it, summon again. I don't know how much it matters. I think it's really good that you can just use Trid to get into any of the other ones you want. And then we have Veda Karantha and Amritara. Those cards, I remember not liking as much when I read them for the first time. I don't think these cards have the greatest impact. What does matter, though, I think, is the new Synchro monster. The new Synchro monster, I think, is pretty cool. This card's name becomes Visa Starfrost while in the monster zone. Only use each effect of Visa's Armitrar once per turn. If this card is special Synchro summoned, you can add any spell and trap that mentions Visas from deck to hand. During the main phase, you can destroy a monster you control. For the rest of this turn, all Synchros will gain 800 attack. This card is very good, and also, you can make this with 2 non-tuners, which is interesting. I think they did it this way so that you can summon it with this plus Visa Starfrost. So this card is interesting. I like this card. I don't think many of this is very relevant. And then we have this card, which is very good. Add a Dark World monster from your deck to your hand, then discard a card. You can only activate 1 Dark Corridor per turn. There's only 2 things that keep this card from being a completely custom card for Dark World. The first thing is it doesn't have Dark World in its name, so it's not searchable off of snow. The second thing is it's once per turn, which you might not think matters, but if you've ever played Dark World, you know how many cards Dark World draws in a turn. Dark World cycles a lot. A card being once per turn for Dark World actually matters a lot. You would obviously like to play 3 of this card. However, if you play 3 of this in Dark World, you will draw multiples. So I don't know if the ideal number is actually 3. Which is like the only thing that's holding this card back. Isn't Dark Corridor just better for small Dark World engines than the pure deck? That is actually an interesting point. Like, genuinely, you might be right about that. You could play 3 Dark Corridors in other decks that do some amount of discarding or have like good discard targets outside of Dark Worlds, maybe. Let me see which ones of these I find worth talking about, because most of this I think wasn't that great. This card is worth keeping an eye on because, okay, no pun intended. This card is interesting because it's just target a face-up monster on the field, place it in the face-up's owner spell and trap zone as a continuous spell, which is a really interesting form of removal, but it also is part of the Snake Eye archetype, so that might be something to look out for. The Fire Charmer is worth reading? Hold up. Isn't this just another channeler but for fire? Yeah, I guess this is solid fire support. This one is worth talking about just because it's kind of like a trade-in but for level 10s. Trade-in isn't very popular these days, but sometimes it sees play, right? The option is worth talking about. This card is also not once per turn, which is cool. So you don't walk into the problem where you activate a draw card just to draw another copy of the draw card. No meta deck immediately benefits from this right now that I can think of, but there's certainly some decks that want to have a card like that. People are saying Earth Machines and stuff. Maybe that helps. Let's talk about Unchained really quickly because I want to read these cards. I actually don't remember reading these at all. No, I have read it before. This card is really good. And then we have Unchained Soul Shiyama. This card is okay, however, it's a level 6. You have to get it into the graveyard somehow. I don't know if it's great. Maybe you play 1. And then we have Unchained Soul Sharvara. I think this card is really strong. This card for sure is like a 3 of. The thing is here, I don't know that much about Unchained, but these cards make me want to try Unchained, which tells you something. Like, those 2 cards are very, very strong. The middle one isn't even bad, right? So Unchained is something I'm probably going to try at some point in the upcoming weeks, just to see what it's got. We have new Purrely cards, which at this point is not even a secret to anybody that these cards are obviously strong. I personally think that this will bring Purrely back into a top tier position, maybe not the top tier position, but definitely good. The deck is already good, as was proven at the North American WCQ. You know, we had a couple of good players top with the Purrely deck. This card is a custom card, and it makes the deck very, very good going first again, right? The deck was struggling going first a little bit, in my opinion, because you lost the consistent access to Delicious Memory. Now it's completely busted again, right? Because you have one that mentions Sleepy Memory now, which is really important because it means you can rank up into Noir by attaching Sleepy Memory from hand or grave, depending on whether you have the white or the black cat. And also, this card has the most busted secondary effect out of all the Purrelys that's ever been made. Up to thrice per turn, when you activate a Purrely quick play spell card, you can attach that card on the field to this card as material, then you can set a Purrely trap directly from your deck. It's completely insane. You don't have to worry about finding the trap card anymore. You just get it up to thrice per turn, so you don't have to spend your Purrely search on it. You don't have to use My Friend to reveal it and hope to get lucky to find it. No, you just always have it. You can even get multiples. However, Purrely Leap is once per turn, so getting multiple Purrely Leaps isn't that great, which is where Purrely Sharely kind of comes in. Purrely Sharely is a card that you can play. Not everyone does in the Purrely list that I've been seeing, but you could, just because you will probably get it for free off of the XYZ. Either way, the main support for Purrely is just the new rank 2 XYZ. It's completely insane. It's completely insane. I think Purrely is expected to be part of the top tier meta again, which I personally don't mind. I'm not a big fan of the towers design, but overall, Purrely I think has a very cool and rewarding playstyle. Let's keep my favorite cards from the set for last, but my second favorite thing in this set is the new Runick card. Sleipnir, the Runick main. This is going to be 50-50. Some people are going to hate it, some people are going to like it. It depends on whether you like Runick or not. I feel like Runick is a very polarizing deck. Like, some people just hate it, some people like it. There's no in between. I personally like it, so I like the Runick main because it's really good. 2 Runick monsters, you're never gonna make it that way. During your main phase or your opponent's battle phase, quick effect, you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls, banish both it and this card until the end phase. If your opponent adds a card from the deck to the hand, you can special summon a Runick token in attack position. You can only use each effect of Sleipnir the Runick main once per turn. Let me tell you why this card is completely busted. First of all, it's a Runick fusion that you summon into the extra monster zone, and it has an effect that frees up the extra monster zone again, right? Because that's a big deal in Runick sometimes. You know, you summon a Runick and then you can't get rid of it sometimes, and then you can't use all of your other Runicks to summon. Sleipnir the Runick main will go into the extra monster zone, then you banish it, and then when it comes back, it goes into the main monster zone. So that's really good. But the most broken part about this card's effect is that it turns every single Runick quick play spell, no matter how bad it is, even like Golden Droplet or Smiting Storm, all of the Runick quick play spells are now removal. They can now bait negations. Your opponent has Barone and you have Smiting Storm, no problem. You bait the Barone. The implications of that are crazy. You can play so many more Runick spells now because they're so much better overall. Let's say you go second and you draw like 3 bad Runicks. Let's say you draw Smiting Storm, Dispelling, and Golden Droplet going second. You use one of the bad ones to summon Sleipnir Runick main to bait an interruption, and then you use the other bad one to summon Hugin, and you discard the third bad one to search Fountain. Even 3 bad Runick spells is completely fine going second now. The secondary effect is just a bonus on top. I'm gonna be honest with you, even if it didn't have this effect at all, it would already be a phenomenal card. Let's say you're playing against Purrely, right? And your opponent goes standby phase, effect of Sleepy Memory to draw a card. You can chain a Runick spell to summon main, they draw a card, and you can get a token. So you have more link material for free. Because it's 2 light monsters, you can make Azalea. This card is phenomenal for Runick decks. And now, what I think is the best cards from this set is the Synchron support. Notably, only 2 cards I think are really good here. It's the Crimson Dragon and Revolution Synchron. The other Synchro support is not that crazy, but these 2 are really, really strong cards. Let me make this clear. Revolution Synchron, in my opinion, is better than Glow Up Bulb, which is banned right now. So Revolution Synchron reads, if you were to Synchro summon a Power Tool Synchro or any level 7 or 8 Dragon Synchro, you can just use it from your hand as material. So all you need to do is have a level 4 or level 5 monster on the board. You can just use Revolution Synchron from your hand as Synchro material to summon Black Rose Dragon, Power Tool Dragon, Ancient Fairy Dragon, any of those. And then, if this card is in your graveyard and you control a level 7 or higher Synchro monster, which you will because you've just used it as Synchro material, you can send the top card of your deck to the graveyard, and if you do special summon this card, but its level becomes 1. So it basically is Glow Up Bulb in the graveyard, but it can also be used for Synchro material in your hand. So this card is completely bonkers, I think. It's also a Synchron, so You can even search it with tuning, so you can play up to 6 copies. And then we also have Assault Synchron from Battles of Legends, which means you have like 2 targets for tuning. In case you ever draw like Revolution and tuning, you can just grab Assault Synchron or any of the other Synchrons. There's a couple of good Synchrons. If you really wanted to, you could play more copies even because of the Get Ready Set Duel or whatever it's called, right? And then we have the Crimson Dragon, which is also a very interesting / Troll Despair card. If this card is special summoned, you can add a spell and trap that mentions the Crimson Dragon from your deck to your hand. You probably won't play any. Quick effect. You can target a level 7 or higher Synchro monster on the field except the Crimson Dragon. Return this card to the extra deck, and if you do, special summon a Dragon Synchro with the same level as the targeted monster from your extra deck. There's a lot of broken shit you can do with that, but the most broken stuff is you can tag out into the true king of all calamities, which makes your opponent unable to do anything. Since this doesn't specify main phase or anything, you can just do it in your opponent's draw phase. This card is very busted. It's a level 12 Synchro, which is surprisingly easy to make in Synchro combo decks. I believe there's a world where Synchron becomes a viable deck because we don't have Max C. In the OCG, it's not really a big deal. The OCG is using a lot of Revolution Synchron to cheat out Chaos Ruler in like Tearlaments. Other than that, they're not using Synchrons as much. However, I think in the TCG, since we don't have Max C and we also have Calamity still legal, I think there is a world where this deck is very scary to go up against. Now, just a quick word. The imports and the world premiere cards are rather disappointing for Duelist Nexus. I think Stardust Worm isn't bad for synchro strategies. Other than that, all of the imports and world premiere cards I think aren't that great. The Dragon Fiend Commander isn't awful for Dark World stuff and whatnot. However, everything else I feel like isn't great. Just to give you my quick opinion on Tistina before the set releases, I think Tistina is not good with the first wave yet. I think it's not meant to be good yet. I think that's why they're releasing them in waves always, is like you don't know whether it's good or not. So a lot of people kind of buy in on the hype and are like, hey, I have hopes that the second wave is going to be broken, so I need to pick up these cards now. I think the Tistina cards are fine design-wise, but 7 cards is just not enough. The trap card I don't think is very good. Everything else are solid cards, but they don't make a functioning deck yet. So we need to wait for the second wave to really judge Tistina here. And that's it with the first overview about Duelist Nexus. I hope you enjoyed this. If you are watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate the support. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought of the video. Was it helpful? What do you think of this kind of video whenever a new set drops? Should I do this for every set? Let me know down below. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll go back to streaming now. All right, bye-bye.